Hi guys, welcome to Fierce and Pretty, Honey here. Today I want to talk about this deck, the Bonestone and Earthflesh Tarot, the Sketchbook edition, which is also known the Bones of the Bonestones Tarot. Well, the Bonestone and Earthflesh Tarot could be one of the most controversial decks in these past few years amongst tarot community, and I never got the original colored version of this deck. And I don't want to be focusing on that big mess. So I just want to talk about this deck. And if you want to see a really nice good quality comparison of the colored original version and then the Bones of the Bonestone next to each other, I'll link Simon's video down below where you can see a really nice good quality comparison between the colored and the sketch version. But this deck now is like really pricey make a playing cards version. So anyone can order this at Make Playing Cards, and it was roughly, I don't know, somewhere around 90 euros. But luckily, at least for me, it came quite fast and without any customs fee to Finland, so that was a plus size. It comes with the tin box. But why I wanted to get this deck, even though it was a pricey one for a, print in order deck, because I don't really have anything like this deck in my collection. It is sepia toned, just the rough sketches, and it might be a bit hard in the beginning to figure out what are in the images, and that's why I enjoyed watching a comparison with the colored deck, even though I don't really like the colored version. And why I don't like the original version is a lot of the pastel colors, especially in the sky. In every card where there is a sky, it is like really yellow, purple, pastel, pink, all these baby blue colors, and it's just too, cotton candy colored for my taste. So that's why I preferred the sketch version. But I think it's a good idea to check the images next to each other so you can see what is everything that was supposed to be in this deck, in this art. I really like the Gandalf looking magician. I love the sepia tones in it. It's not like a really fast reader. It's not a lazy deck. It's not something that you could just quickly see the image and get it like pop, pop, pop. To me, this deck is more about personal readings, those quiet ones, those when you want to reflect, where you want to look deeper. And what I think, like in these sketches, I like that there are cards that are not really traditional, like the Emperor here. Yeah, you can see a dude behind there with his crown. You can actually see 3 people in this sketch version. The dude in the crown, there's somebody behind, but in the main focus, the figure looks like a woman, like a true, like a horned shield maiden. And that's what I really like, to have different depictions. And then compared to the original colored version, I think that in these sketches the images are so much more magical and mystical, like all the lines in the faces. And to me, this deck leaves so much more room for my imagination. It's not as guiding as the colored version, on my opinion. I think the way this deck has been done leaves room more for imagination. Of course, you don't have color symbolism, but I get that in every other deck. I like that the Hermit is really different, really shamanistic. And even the Wheel of Fortune is a really raw sketch, but still you can see the Norns weaving there. And this is a really good card to really show why I like this sketch version. it leaves so much room for my mind to work around with this deck. Then there are some cards like the Magician that looks exactly like Gandalf, or the Hanged Man that looks like, really clear Odin. So there are, even in these sketches, really clear cards. And I like, of course, as a Scorpio, I always watch the Death card, and I like how this is really different. She has roots coming from her back and these birds flying off her belly and forming that skull in there. Some images are more just symbolic, not a human figure in there. And like this devil, like with the Emperor, it's really different, even though you see the goat legs there. But I think the sketch, as I said, again gives more room. Then some cards like this Tower, I first had to look at it for a while before I could see what it is. But then when I've once seen the comparison between the colored deck and this deck, I immediately know that it's a bird, eagle kind of bird, that it's tied from its leg and it's lying on its side. So seeing the original images once have helped me to understand this deck. And I could even see a good path working potential in this deck because of the sketch way of doing the deck. And there is some different symbolism in many of these images that feel quite personal to me, that I like, that it's different. Well, this World card, you see Yggdrasil, the World Tree, but some of these cards in these sketches look kind of, meh. But overall, I enjoy the way. But let's take a closer look of the minors next to each others, and I'll quickly go through which cards I like and which not so much. Let's start with the aces. I think having them all side by side gives a clear first image that it's a kind of a cohesive deck. They all look like real aces, even though they are different. I think the easiest one is the swords, maybe then cups and pentacles. The wands is a bit unclear when it comes to this sketch version. Then with the twos, easy for me to pick out my least favorite. I really don't like spiders, but actually this ain't that creepy spider, so I can really have this in my deck. But it's my least favorite, just because I don't like spiders. I like the swords, how she's carrying a pendulum instead of the swords, but it's her tool for the decision making in the Two of Swords. Two of Cups is really traditional here, but I like this little forest child in the Two of Wands that looks like it's going for an adventure or something. This is one of those cards that really give room for your imagination. In the threes, my instant favorite is the Three of Cups. I'm liking the cauldron and the moon with those ladies dancing there. The Three of Swords is also kind of like really typical, but still kind of a different depiction of it. And I like the ring on her finger there. Can you see all these details even in the sketch version? Three of Pentacles is really kind of typical, and in the wands it looks like they are making tattoos. But even these, they are all writing stories immediately. Like in this one, I can hear the drum playing. I can smell the ink. It's just something in this way that this deck has been created that speaks to me. I really like all these fours. This kind of makes me think of a mother fixing her daughter's hair on a wedding day. Something really heartwarming in this image, even though the young lady kind of looks a wee bit too pretty, little too bold and the beautiful type of face, but I love the face on the older lady. In the Four of Cups, I like that this is really in the water. He's just lying in a boat. It seems like there's a lot of fish everywhere. That could be a sun or a moon up there between the mountains. Again, a story. And again, a scene where I can smell the sea. I can smell the fishes. I've done this when I was a young girl. I used to just chill out on a rowing boat by myself on the sea. And that's why I can just immediately drop myself into this image. This Four of Swords makes me think about cleansing. He's taking a cleansing bath. And that's one way of, getting rid of things that get you tired, to rest and recuperate. He's put down his sword and his soldier gear and his horse. And he's taking this bath to renew. And this Four of Pentacles is kind of really great. To me, this brings to my mind a sentence that I always say to my dad. Like, you can't bring your money in your coffin. Like the dead can't have any of their earthly possessions. And that's what I think when I see this clearly skeletal figure here wearing all these different type of jewelries. And that is why kind of greed and holding too tight on your earthly possessions is kind of, pointless. Two of the fives are kind of very typical. Five of Wands. There are people climbing in this tree, kind of struggling there, but it is still kind of basic Five of Wands atmosphere in it, as is the Five of Swords. But the Five of Pentacles I'm finding a bit more interesting. There are a lot of them in this hut. There's a group trying to survive in this hut. There are children, older people. But for some reason I think this is more communal than the traditional Five of Pentacles. And this Five of Cups with this elephant brings me fast to the scene in The Lion King, to the elephant cemetery. And this image is very different from a standard Rider-Waite-Smith Five of Cups, but it still brings in the story of the sorrow. I like the sixes. My least favorite is the Six of Wands, but he still is. He's putting a skulled crown in his head. There is that, victory, primal victory in that depiction. But the Six of Cups, he's my favorite. Again, this face starts to write a story. I think we've all seen this man. And I think the ones who've known this man in their life are lucky. There is something really amazing in that wrinkly face. And I can feel his, heart. The gentle, kind heart of an older man. The Six of Swords makes me think of Mythologia Fennica and Tuonelan tyttö, the maiden of, the river of death, while she's traveling on this boat that is shaped like a bird. And I really like the Six of Pentacles, because I do feed birds throughout the winter here in Finland. The sevens, well, the Seven of Wands, it looks like a really swordy card. She's clearly holding a shield and a sword, but it still is that defensive position, like in a standard Seven of Wands. But I like the Seven of Cups. There is somebody inviting you into this seven. I think this place is full of illusion, and this guy clearly is the salesman of the used cars. He's clearly there to trick you and lure you into all these temptations. I really like this depiction of the Seven of Cups. This Seven of Swords writes me a story where she has burned the village. Even though the smoke in the houses might be coming out of chimneys. But to me it looks like the torch is burning in her hand, and so are the houses. And the Pentacles image is a bit more kind of traditional, but instead of planting something, he's working with mushrooms. But he's taking his time, whatever he's doing there. And then in the eights, I like how this is depicted, like the running flock of horses, going like really fast. No wands needed to convey the message of the card. And again, this Eight of Cups is a really good depiction of how this deck writes a story. You can see what she is running away from. But with this Eight of Swords, you have to look closer. She's not bound by any way. She's free with her sword. But look there, on the ground. Somebody small is bound. Would it be like the inner child or whoever? It's just a baby? Or is it part of the woman? I don't know, but this card is brilliant. But again, with this method of having sketches, you need to take time to find the details, and that's why this deck is a slow and kind of a deck that you would use when you have time to really go into these images. And in this Eight of Pentacles, she's working on something. To me it looks like the willow flutes that my dad used to make me when I was a kid, but there's a skull in that one that she's carving into that. But this makes me think about those willow flutes that I would play when I was a girl, how they tasted in my mouth and how they sounded. The nines are kind of my least favorite of the bunch, even though normally, well, some of the nines are nice, some of them are not. This is my absolute least favorite card of this deck, and it's just the fact that it's so dark. It's such a close-up of that kind of lion, tiger, I don't know what kind of animal's face, but it's too dark into this deck. Well, it could be like a scary dream, but that's my least favorite. The Nine of Pentacles is dancing there, kind of a ballet girl, yeah. And this Nine of Cups is kind of different. I think the lady's wings look like peacock's feathers, but she's pouring the liquid, and this would be kind of the feasting card, or I don't know if she's granting wishes to all these people. I don't know, but it's different. It's not just a single person that normally is there in the Nine of Cups. So I think this is kind of happiness and wishes fulfilled shared, this card. Then this Nine of Wands makes me think of a warrior, like in somewhere in the Amazonian rainforest or somewhere. Somebody, you know, protecting their tribe, their family. A brave one, but somebody clearly out of my world. Maybe somebody from a dream. Three of the tens are kind of very traditional, but the Ten of Cups being kind of the oddest of them. This could be clearly an Ace of Cups also, but to me it looks like there's the shape of world or moon or something in that cup. That's what I see there. But this, on a quick glance, looks more like an ace than a 10. This Ten of Wands reminds me a lot about the Ten of Wands in the Shimmering Veil Tarot, how he's carrying two people. And this Ten of Swords kind of combines the Lightseer's Tarot with the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, but really traditional. And also the Ten of Pentacles is kind of traditional, even though the scenery is different. There are no castles, they are living in a hut. This is more earthy. I really would like to be in this card. Once again, a really good path-working card. And then last but not least, the Chord Cards. In these, the imagery isn't like really fast and easy with the symbols, here you absolutely need the titles. There are no wands depicted. The Page of Cups is still managing to be really watery here, even though there's no colors in it. My favorite of the pages is the Page of Swords. He's having the quill there, he's studying. I can clearly see myself in this image when I'm immersed in my studies, all up in my brains, and my brains are just burning. With this image I have the same issue like the Four of Wands, the lady being so pretty. This guy is also a bit too pretty. And, well, I guess all of us ladies have met this guy once. Kind of full of himself, just working for his end game, trying to get what he wants. I think we all know him too. This Knight of Wands again reminds me of Mythology of Fennica Tarot, the character who is a smith, who's making the sampo. This is clearly a smith. But also this makes me think about Thor and then the Finnish god Ukko. So this is an interesting card. And the Knight of Cups, even though she's clearly kind of a mermaid type of figure, swimming somewhere fast, the sword there makes you think for a second of a swords card, but I think it's a good tool for a knight in the Knight of Cups. In this Knight of Swords, I really like the owl behind her. And this Knight of Pentacles has the earthliness of kind of snakes in her hair. The queens I like, but my absolute favorite, one of my favorite cards in the whole deck, and absolutely my favorite queen, is the Queen of Pentacles with that chicken leg in her hands. I don't know. I think I'm gonna look like her when I get old. The Queen of Swords is really young looking fierce fighter next to that old crone of the Pentacles. And in the Queen of Cups there is some sadness. There's a lot of emotion in her eyes. Then this Queen of Wands, you can really see the character and the personality in this determined lady's eyes. And then lastly to the kings. Even though I normally really love all things Egyptian, but this king is still, this pharaoh of a king is my least favorite. For some reason I think it feels out of place in this deck, even though I could easily see myself in this. If you don't know, my secret dream would be a pharaoh one day. And if I could travel back in time, I would be a badass pharaoh. Yeah, but still, even though I like the idea, he kind of feels out of place. The King of Cups is like Ahti in the Mythology of Fennica Tarot deck, the Finnish god of the seas, the giver of the fish and bounty of the seas. That's what he is to me. Even though if you go with other mythologies, I know you can find other guys who this could be representing, but to me he's Ahti. The King of Swords is kind of like the favorite figure of all my movies that I like. I like Game of Thrones and Braveheart, these type of movies. Back when people were living in castle and fighting their wars with swords. And again, even though this is a close-up of a face and the hilt of a sword, this card just takes me into a scene that can turn out in a truly magnificent story. And lastly, the green man looking King of Pentacles, really earthy. And even though he's kind of out of this deck in a way like the Pharaoh King of Wands, but I still really like him. In these kings and court cards I can see many deities, and that's something that I like in this deck. But one important thing for me always, when I consider if I wanna buy a deck, if I wanna get it, is also how it shuffles. So that's why, even though this was a really long video, the reason why I wanted to do this kind of so thorough is because if people really want to consider if they want to buy this deck, because it is a pricey deck, as I said in the beginning, so I think it's worthwhile considering if you want to get it or not. But let's look how it shuffles. The riffle is beautiful, like butter. And I think this deck is better for riffle than hand over hand. In a hand over hand is a wee bit kind of, you know, flimsy, even though the deck has nice weight. It has nice weight, even though the card stock isn't that thick. I think in Simon's comparisons, he put the decks next to each other, and this is thinner than the original colored version of this deck. But I like how it feels in my hand and how it shuffles, and I'm considering on edging this with some sort of earthy brown color. But overall, what is my opinion of this deck is that I find it has a great place in my collection. I don't have anything like this, so that makes it unique. I like the way I can use it differently than the other decks that I have. And as you can see, well, I guess on camera it is harder to see, but it makes these peaceful spreads, well, unless this guy jumps in. But clearly, maybe you see why that one is not my favorite. He's disturbingly dark. But the plain style of these cards makes you just look into them. It gives you time, it gives you peace to go into the reading. Now I'm gonna change this one so we can see. Yes, now it's visually a bit more pleasing. But even though here I would like a more steady kind of shade in these cards, like the Six of Swords here. She's kind of darker than the other cards. I would like them all to have kind of the similar darkness. That would make it even more cohesive when you're making spreads. But overall, to me, this deck was worth it. And I like using it, and I think I'm gonna use it for a long time. But whether you should get it or not, I don't know. That's your decision. But at least I hope I could demonstrate why I decided to get this deck and why I think that for me it was worth being a mega pricey printing order deck. See, again, I don't like that one. But again, there are some other darker cards, so it gives contrast to the spread. If you have any questions about this deck, let me know. And if you have it, do you like it? And if you have the both versions, this one and the original colored one, let me know down in the comments which one do you like better and why. For me, this was the right one, as I said, because of the too much pastel-y colors in the originals. Ooh, I love her. Until next time, bye guys.